Tonight, hitting the trail. President Biden is in South Carolina trying to energize Democrats, while former President Donald Trump rallies Republicans in Nevada on his quest for a rematch. The immigration crisis looming large.
I'm Camilo Montoya Galvez in Eagle Pass, Texas, where a razor-sharp showdown is underway at the border, and neither side is backing down.
Also tonight, new strike. U.S. forces hit militants targeting ships in the Red Sea. While CBS's Charlie Daggett is inside Gaza with Israeli forces, hunting for Hamas fighters.
They were firing from this school.
From within schools, from within courtyards, from shafts and underground facilities.
Plus, punishing storms. Millions threatened in the east, a new system set to soak the west. Anchors away. The world's largest cruise ship leaves Miami on its maiden voyage.
I'm Cristian Benavides in Miami, where the largest cruise ship in the world is setting sail.
And later, causing a stir. An American lands in hot water in Britain over how to make that perfect cup of tea.
That you could add a pinch of salt to remove some of the bitterness.
Rubbish.
This is the CBS Weekend News from Washington with Adriana Diaz.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. Adriana's off. I'm Ed O'Keefe. Tonight, we're getting a sense of what could be the longest general election campaign in American history. President Biden is in South Carolina ahead of his party's first primary of the year, the first time Democrats are beginning their primaries in the South. And Mr. Biden's would-be opponent is in Nevada, where Republicans hold their next contest. It's the first time we've seen former President Donald Trump since he was ordered by a New York jury to pay more than $83 million in a federal defamation case on Friday. CBS's Christina Ruffini starts us off tonight from outside the House both men would like to live in for 4 more years. Christina, good evening.
Good evening, Ed. Well, Trump made only a passing, very vague reference to the verdict in his extended remarks this evening, instead reserving most of his fire for the current occupant of the Oval Office.
Appearing at a sports venue in Las Vegas today, former President Trump took aim at current President Biden.
Under crooked Joe Biden, our country is dying.
Meanwhile, President Biden took off for South Carolina, where he visited a local barbershop and will hold a rally in the state of the first 2024 Democratic primary. But it's the state of the U.S. border dominating the news cycle.
This is an invasion. It's an invasion of our country.
Lawmakers in the Senate are on the verge of a bipartisan compromise on immigration reform, but the former president has stepped in to try to stop it.
A lot of the senators are trying to say respectfully they're blaming it on me. I said, that's okay, please blame it on me. I'd rather have no bill than a bad bill.
But some Senate Republicans are pushing back, saying they're unlikely to get a better offer.
This is the most leverage I've seen Republicans have.
In a statement late Friday, President Biden said if passed, the bill would be the toughest and fairest border reform in history, giving him the power to shut down the border as soon as he signs it.
The question now is, will the bill make it to the president's desk or become a casualty of the campaign? Ed?
Christina Ruffini leading us off tonight. Thank you. Now, for more on those potential changes to immigration rules and border security, we turn to Camilo Montoya Galvez, who covers immigration for CBS News. He's in the border city of Eagle Pass, Texas. Camilo, with senators soon set to unveil their proposed plan, how would the proposed changes affect migrants trying to actually cross the border?
Ed, it would be a dramatic policy change for anyone trying to get across. The president would have the authority to effectively shut down asylum processing here at the U.S.-Mexico border when there's a spike in illegal crossings. Migrants would be quickly expelled back to Mexico across the Rio Grande. It would also make asylum interviews harder to pass and increase deportations, something lawmakers hope will deter migrants from coming to the U.S. While Congress considers these changes, the state of Texas and the Biden administration are involved in an extraordinary legal showdown. Here in Eagle Pass, the Texas National Guard is defying demands to allow federal agents into a public park, fortifying a former Border Patrol staging area for migrants with razor wire. Texas says it needs to block access to deter illegal crossings, and more than 24 Republican governors have supported the state's actions. But the Biden administration says Texas is blocking Border Patrol from doing its job. And Ed, immigration enforcement, after all, is a federal responsibility.
Camilo Montoya Galvez on the border tonight. Thank you. Now to the Middle East. Today, the U.S. military said it destroyed another anti-ship missile used by Houthi rebels in Yemen. An oil tanker in the Red Sea was hit and caught fire on Friday. The last flames were extinguished today. And intense fighting is reported in Gaza, where the Israeli army is targeting the militant group Hamas. CBS's Charlie D'Agata was embedded with Israeli troops in Gaza and filed this report.
We crossed into southern Gaza with the soldiers of the 55th Brigade 98th Paratroopers Division, known as the Tip of the Spear Brigade. They've been fighting against Hamas since early December. Across a short stretch of open farmland, we come to a stop.
We're just a few hundred yards into Gaza itself, and we cross through the very same breach in the fence that Hamas militants punched through in order to launch their attacks that day.
From this very spot, we were shown the entrance to a shaft this close to the border, connecting to Gaza's extensive tunnel system that runs for more than 450 miles. Troops say this opening allowed Hamas explosives teams to reach and breach the border fence undetected. A soldier kept his rifle aimed at the tunnel, just in case. We drove deeper into the territory toward the besieged city of Khan Yunis, through upscale neighborhoods, hardly a building left untouched, most of them leveled by weeks of Israeli bombardment. The sound of gunfire and explosions in the distance, some not so distant.
This is, or was, an elementary school on the outskirts of Khan Yunis. It's now an Israeli military headquarters, and soldiers say they had to fight their way in to capture it, and you can see the scars of that battle everywhere.
Lieutenant Colonel Anshi took part in the gun battle.
They were firing from this school.
From within schools, from within courtyards, from shafts and underground facilities.
You were injured.
Correct, yeah.
What happened?
I got a bullet in my arm. Came in and out.
The 55th Brigade, seen here in recent fighting, has helped encircle Khan Yunis. Yet Hamas leaders and more than 130 hostages have eluded them. Driving back through the destruction, it's clear their mission is not just about taking over territory above ground, but flushing out what might be lurking below. Charlie D'Agata, CBS News, on the outskirts of Khan Yunis, inside Gaza.
Now to the weather. A January thaw across the country is melting away several winter events. In Minneapolis, the U.S. Pond Hockey Championship's final weekend was canceled due to warm weather. And there's new trouble ahead across the country. Let's check in with meteorologist Paul Goodloe at the Weather Channel.
Well, Ed, we're still tracking thunderstorms rolling across the southeast, but as that storm system exits the southeast, it's not quite done. It's going to move across the mid-Atlantic, in the northeast, and New England. And while things are quiet down across southeast, it's going to bring some more snow. Yes, snow back across the northeast and even parts of New England after our little thaw going on here. So it's going to also be impactful, say, late tomorrow into Monday morning. It will also bring some wind. So not the perfect timing for a big nor'easter, but look for the wind to increase. Some areas like Boston, New York, a very wet and windy Monday for you. But the interior, say Manchester, New Hampshire, westward, we could see maybe a half foot of snow. Yes, and some wind as well. West Coast, we're also dealing with atmospheric rivers back on tap as we head into this weekend and into next week as well. Ed?
Paul Goodloe of the Weather Channel, thank you. And keeping our eye on the sky, we note that the Boeing 737 MAX 9 jetliner has returned to flight. Today, United Airlines flew one of the jets from Newark to Las Vegas, and Alaska Airlines began flying the planes again yesterday. You may recall authorities first grounded the 737 MAX 9 3 weeks ago after a plug door blew off mid-flight. Some lawmakers remain concerned the planes are being rushed back into service. And from the skies to the seas, today the world's biggest cruise ship set sail on its maiden voyage. The Royal Caribbean Icon of the Seas cast off from the port of Miami late this afternoon. The massive ship has 20 decks. CBS's Christian Benavides is there.
The ship is nearly 5 times bigger than the Titanic. You can hear a lot of excitement here as people watched the ship set sail. About 10,000 people are on board on this historic, some may say iconic, first cruise.
Come aboard. Royal Caribbean is betting $2 billion that you will love their new flagship.
How exciting is this?
I can't even describe it. We cannot put into
So
words. Excited.
It was anchors away and bon voyage for those who booked passage for today's maiden voyage on this 250,000-ton engineering marvel. For the 7-day Caribbean cruise, the average stateroom ranges from $3,500 for 2 people all the way to $100,000 for this, quote, ultimate family townhouse. And there's tons of space. 2,800 staterooms fill the ship's 20 decks, enough for 7,600 passengers, the same population as Joshua Tree. From bow to stern, it measures nearly 1,200 feet. From the first to the top floor, the Empire State Building is 1,250 feet tall. There are more than 40 places to dine and drink, 7 pools, and the first of its kind cruise ship water park.
I mean, it's going to have to be a round robin, right? We're going to hit them all. We can't wait.
The Icon is fueled by liquid natural gas, which Royal Caribbean says is cleaner than previous generations of fuels. However, some environmental groups argue that it's still a source of significant greenhouse gases.
There is so much want for these tickets that they're already available for 2025 and 2026. The most affordable tickets, about $2,000 per person. Ed?
Cristian Benavides on dry land for us tonight. Thank you. Now, take a look at this. A truck carrying zebras and camels caught fire on Interstate 69 in Indiana. Cell phone video taken by police shows zebras grazing by the roadside as camels just walked on by. The animals belong to the Shrine Circus. All were accounted for, and thankfully, none were injured. Straight ahead on the CBS Weekend News, inside the fight to save dogs' lives, and how a salty suggestion left an American in hot water with the British. Tonight, just 4 NFL teams remain on the road to Super Bowl 58. Big playoff game Sunday will decide which 2 are going. But for football fans, the fun is on and off the field. Here's CBS's Michael George.
The Lions, 49ers, Chiefs, and Ravens are ready to compete for their chance to play in Super Bowl 58.
It takes a lot to get to this point, to still be playing in a game of this magnitude.
San Francisco is set. The airport lit up in 49ers red and gold. Detroit Lions fans arriving to watch their team in person.
The spirit in Detroit is next to none.
It's already a win for GM workers in Flint, Michigan. The company is idling a plant, allowing workers to start their shift later so they don't miss the game.
A lot of them petitioned me to go speak with the plant manager. I did so. They were very open to the conversation.
The Lions have never been to a Super Bowl. Fan Alex Chapeska is counting on them to win. He already got a tattoo declaring them champions.
I've never been more sure of anything in my life.
And there's excitement about the game off the field. Many tuning in to see Taylor Swift cheering on Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce. But last Sunday, Travis's brother Jason stole the show. The Philadelphia Eagles center celebrating shirtless with fans.
Honestly, one of the most fun experiences I've ever had.
Millions watched when Jason gave Ella Piazza a lift so she could see Swift.
She smiled and she waved.
Eileen's Cookies outside Kansas City immortalized the moment in cookie form. Orders are through the roof, and no one's more surprised than employees.
I did not expect chest hair to be so appetizing.
50 million people tuned in for last weekend's Chiefs-Bills divisional playoff game. That's a record. Michael George, CBS News, New York.
Still ahead on the CBS Weekend News, why the head of the WWE is stepping down. Vince McMahon, the infamous founder of World Wrestling Entertainment, has resigned as executive chairman of its parent company. The move came a day after McMahon was accused of sexual assault and sex trafficking in a lawsuit. A former WWE employee, Janelle Grant, claims she was physically and emotionally abused by McMahon. He's denied the allegations and says he's stepping down out of respect for the WWE universe. Overseas, Britain's King Charles is spending another night in the hospital. Today, Queen Camilla was seen leaving the London clinic where he's recovering from surgery for an enlarged prostate. The king, who's 75, is said to be doing well. Next on the CBS Weekend News, to the rescue. With shelters packed, how these dogs' lives are being saved, one forever home at a time. Tonight, pet shelters across the country are struggling with overcrowding. Nearly 1 in 5 households adopted a pet during the pandemic, but the intake of stray dogs is up nearly 25% since 2021. Some must be put down to ease the crisis. But in tonight's Weekend Journal, CBS's Amanda Starantino shows us how a California woman is doing her part to save lives, one dog at a time.
Just a short time ago, this playful pup's life had an end date. Nala had 14 days until she would be euthanized.
She was the sweetest, most friendly dog, and it's like, how could this dog be put down?
Colleen and Larry Smith are dog people, but Nala is their first rescue.
I was nervous about it because you don't know what you're going to get.
A lot of times dogs like Yogi here in the shelter just needed an advocate to support them to be able to find their forever home. And that's where Frost Fund comes in.
And right now, California is the #1 state in the United States with the highest kill rate at shelters.
Brittany Scheffler is the mind and heart behind Frost Fund.
We do our best here when we can to advocate for specific red-listed dogs at the Long Beach shelter.
Frost Fund is a nonprofit organization providing education and advocacy for animals. One part of their mission is a focus on red list dogs, dogs that need to be placed out of the shelter or they will be put down.
They are not bad dogs. We do our best to relay that accurate information and to give these dogs who might not otherwise be seen that chance of really being pushed out.
Frost Fund's Red List rescue team makes these dog stories go viral and hopes the right person sees it. It's simply a group of people who just share Frost Fund's Instagram posts. And this method, it's working. Since Frost Fund started doing this last year, 13 dogs have been saved. One of those dogs was a dog named Snickerdoodle. Now we know her as
Nala.
She'd been found as a stray and taken to a shelter to be adopted and let loose again, then adopted by an elderly couple who surrendered her, leading Nala to be on the red list status. When Larry saw her post, though, the couple connected with Frost Fund, and they had Scheffler assist with the entire adoption process.
Just gives you kiss after kiss after kiss, kind of like a thank you for taking me.
Saving Nala's life and changing theirs. Amanda Starantino, CBS News, Canyon Lake, California.
When we return, a tempest in a teacup. Take it with a grain of salt. Finally tonight, big fan of this story because you see, the last time the British and Americans had a major tea dispute was over that party in Boston. Well, now an American scientist is stirring up debate, claiming Brits are missing a key ingredient for the perfect cup. CBS's Ian Lee spills the tea for us on this salty controversy.
Trouble is brewing over the best brew.
Well, the secret ingredient that set off all the furor was salt.
The tussle over tea started when U.S. scientist Michelle Frankel made the salty suggestion.
And that you could add a pinch of salt to remove some of the bitterness from tea.
But it's leaving a bitter taste in Britain.
Ew. Yeah, that just sounds weird.
Rubbish. Frankel's proper pot, outlined in her new book, is steeped in science.
There's recent research that shows that the sodium ions, they block the bitter receptors, so you can sort of tell your tongue not to taste the bitter.
The tempest in a teapot triggered a diplomatic dispute. The U.S. Embassy in London tweeted, "The unthinkable notion of adding salt to Britain's national drink is not official U.S. policy." But cheekily added, tea is made in a microwave, not a kettle, rubbing salt in an old wound.
To show how to make a real cup of tea.
You don't need a microwave to make a cup of tea. All you need is a naked flame, tea bag, sugar.
Frankel knows the battle between tradition and science is causing quite a stir, but she's pouring it on.
You know, if you want a taste of tea that's a little less bitter, try that pinch of salt.
A storm in a teacup that'll keep boiling across the Atlantic. Ian Lee, CBS News, London.
That's the news for this Saturday. First thing tomorrow, please join CBS Sunday Morning for a special look back at the life of Charles Osgood. Then it's Face the Nation. Margaret Brennan's guests include Republican Senator James Lankford of Oklahoma and Democratic Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia. I'm Ed O'Keefe in Washington. On behalf of all of us here at CBS News, have a good night.